Hey, this is Max. Welcome back to another CSR2 video. I'm here looking at my elite license choices, and a viewer also asked about what are some good choices for your elite license. Well, I think most of the veteran players going back years will have some say in this because most of us made some bad choices. So let's talk about what may be some good choices for each elite license, assuming you're proceeding normally in the game and you have access to these particular cars. One of the big changes, particularly with Tier 1, is that they introduced the legend cars somewhere along the line. When we first started as players, we didn't have these. One of the best of these cars, and one of the first ones you get, is the Boss 302. And you're more than likely going to keep buying them because one is that you want the elite one for the collection cup anyway. Two, it's one of the best tier ones for live racing. And three, you're going to buy more to do those elite level upgrades for race pass. So might as well elite license one of these. It's going to be used one way or the other at some point. So once you elite license it, it'll have that extra 10% bonus, and it certainly will not be the only one you have. So it's not like you're locking yourself out of the event from using this. And that being said, for the actual event, it's better to use the 1-star GTI anyway for both Tempest 1 and 2. Also, another good option, and this generally applies to Elite License 2, would be the 1.5 Civic. It's a good car for Elite licensing. And is probably going to be your best choice for any kind of live racing. The other option is to elite license Angel's Civic, which is actually what I did. I had Angel's Civic elite licensed for Elite License 2 because I use it for both live racing and map racing. So this one, despite being a purple star, is actually a little bit slower than the gold star, but nonetheless, this is also a good option. The only thing with Honda is, of course, for newer players, make sure you have enough fusions before you lock one of these in for any licensing. Otherwise, you might be stuck when it comes time. Notice I elite licensed the Golf GTI because by Tempest 3, you're stuck using that miserable Miata, and quite honestly, at that point, the GTI will no longer be used for anything, but I elite licensed the GTI. The car that I elite licensed and actually regret is the 1286. Just not very good. Fiesta ST, they sort of nerfed this, so also not as good. Velociter, the problem is it's not a terrible car. It's actually capable of beating Tempest 1 and 2, but fusions for Hyundai back in the day was very difficult. Now, yeah, it's a lot easier. And also, this is not a car you can buy in the dealership to strip. So again, the A-Bars, the Fiesta, Toyota, and Golf, you can buy and strip to get fusions. So that was also an influence in my choice. Cooper S, not a terrible car, but not outstanding enough and easy enough to get parts for that it really is something we want to deal with. And you don't get conduit until later, so that's not an option either. All right, so that's Tier 1. Let's go ahead and look at Tier 2. So Tier 2 is one of the worst tiers to get cars for because there are not that many good cars in it, and then they're hard to get, and then they're hard to build. Now, you want to save the 250 GTO for the Tempest itself because it's good enough to get through Tempest 1, 2, and 3 once you get one of the Stage 6s that's necessary for it. So the car that I would likely use to lock in for Tempest 1, at that point you would have limited Tier 2s, would be any car that can basically get you through. Mind you, the ones that you can use potentially to get through Tempest 1 and possibly 2 is also the M235i, but although you want the starred version, not the non-star. The no-star version I end up buying because I use that again for race pass. Now, Once you get the Tempest 2, you can lock in KJs, which is used anyway for one of the collection cups. So, if you want KJ's car, you can lock that in. It will qualify for the license as well. But if you get a 1-star BMW, that might be an option as well. And then really, there are not that many great options in Tier 2 outside of that. Rocket Bunny Miata is one of the best cars for Tempest 3. So if you only have one, certainly you wouldn't want to lock that in for licensing. Your other options, of course, would be oftentimes 1-star cars come the most, and that would be something like the Boxster S. Do not lock in the STI. It's the worst Tier 2 car in the game. Focus RS, again, not that great. If you somehow got a hold of the Civic Type R before you had to do Tempest 2, that's a good option for running Tempest and possibly licensing. But again, Tier 2 is like one of those strange tiers where things are just not that great all around, and therefore options are not that great all around either. In my case, I also licensed the TTRS, which is in collections. So, if you're going to build these anyway, locking it in for licensing would be okay. A45 AMG is actually not a bad car. 4C Spider, actually, if built, and again, you need stage 6s and built, is a great Tempest choice. But alternately, you could lock it in as the license car. Again, I feel like Tier 2 is just tough. Now, for the second license later on, many people want to lock in Finn's Exige for Tempest 3 because the Exige, with enough upgrades, with the high Evo used in live against bots, can make pretty good RP. So that's a good option. Boxster S, if you don't need it for the actual Tempest itself, it's still a decent car all around. So obviously usable as a licensed car as well. But again, Tier 2 is one of the weird tiers where I just don't find a lot of cars I like. One other live racer that fully elite legend car, very good for live racing, is the 300 SL Coupe. So again, this one, again, a good choice for locking in as the license car to get that 10% bonus if you still race live racing in Tier 2, which for me, I never do now. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So while you always want to lock in a live racer for any Tempest license for that 10%, Tier 2 just doesn't have a lot of utility in the long run. Tier 3 start to have a lot of choices. Here the problem is you really want to just have a car that you're actually going to want to use in whether it's map racing or live racing, which really becomes kind of a challenge to decide because Tier 3, while there's some good cars, generally are not that great when it comes to live racing. A lot of people tend to use the Corvette Legend cars to lock in for the license simply because you have them. But again, they have to be fully restored. Collection cars are a good choice as well, since collections cups happen all the time. Every little extra RP during that collection cup runs would be helpful, and you're going to build these anyway for the collections. So look at the collections cars. Just keep in mind that BMWs, all of these guys, tend to dominate as far as being good for the Tempest itself. So keep that in mind. Don't lock out, again, a car into license that you're going to use for the actual event. Live racing. Tier 3, I don't test Tier 3s enough because I never live race in there to tell you what's the best. I think, again, Civic Type R is pretty good. I'm pretty sure the RS5 Coupe is pretty decent. And the BMWs, again, are pretty good. And plus, some people like the Legend cars. With Tempest 1 and 2, remember that you want a locking car that is a fast sprinter. So do not use tire spinning cars like the RS5s. That isn't going to be good for sprints. And you shouldn't lock in a car that's really not good at getting fusions like Chevys and Porsches. The Ford Mustang 2-star is one of the choices. And if you build it all the way It's also good for Tempest 3, so that's something looking down the road you can always set up for yourself. Plus, now with the elite upgrades, if you want to burn some tokens on it, it'll definitely make it through all 3 Tempests for you. So the Mustang GT Premium is a choice. How is it in live racing? Probably not that great, so I'm not really keen on worrying about that. The SRT Hellcats are bad. They're slow. They're not good for Tempest. They're not good for live racing. They do have a nice down tune, so people used to use them to get money from you, but they're not really viable long-term live racers, so I wouldn't put too much effort into them either. So, and that's really it for Tier 3. Again, not a tier I would live race after getting Tier 4 and 5 cars. So this is one of those tiers where the license car is just whatever you think you end up actually using in map racing and other racing. Most likely collection cup cars will be your good choices for that, since you will definitely be using them. All right, moving right along to Tier 4. Things get really interesting in Tier 4. Now, I have a video on all the Tier 4 cars that can beat Tempest 3, and that's really what you want to think about. But when you first start in Elite License 1, you're not likely to have anything good. So at that point, it's just a matter of locking in anything that'll beat the license. However, again, the elite level cars, you have more margin of making it better without having to go full stage 6 by upgrading the elite levels. They get used in a lot of showdowns. So you might want to license something that you're going to end up using in that situation if you have the car. Again, Collections Cup cars, the best ones are the Tier 4 Jack Roush Mustang, which I'm trying to scroll. I guess I might have passed it already, since they're not organized well. The Jack Roush, this guy right here, is a collector car, collector cup car. When you first get introduced to collector cup, you'll have enough points. Okay, here we go. You'll have enough points to be able to get this car. It's only 800 some points. Just the beginning few levels of collections, when it gets introduced to you as a newer player, will get you enough points to get this car. It is good enough to beat Tempest 3 at stage 5 only, full fusion. It's also a viable live racer if you know how to control it. So this is a good option. Another Tier 4 option that you may want to consider would be another collections car, and that is the Dark Horse. Again, something you're going to end up building. You're going to use this car probably for live racing too, because it's good for live racing. Something like this, elite license with that 10% bonus would be good, or you save it for running the actual event. Either way, they will be good for you. I locked this in back in the day because that's what I had, and that's unfortunately sometimes the only choice you have if you're rushing Tempest. Which brings us to the point. There's no need to rush Tempest, right? I know the game keeps pushing you as if you don't do Tempest, somehow you're missing out on this great stuff. Quite honestly, Tempest 1, 2, and 3 at this point in the game gives you very little other than some resources. But it burns more resources than it gives you when you're trying to win these prize cars. And the prize cars, the boss cars, are quite honestly pretty useless in the game. So from Tier 4, you really want to start thinking, collection cars. A lot of the collection cars, this one also beats all of Tempest 1, 2, and 3, the in attack package. One of the good choices. I have a video on this. The legend cars in Tier 4 are not great, but this one, okay, this is worth talking about. The NSXR is one of the classic to today viable live racers. In fact, it's still quite good if you know how to set it up right. You don't need it fully elite to purple stars to make it shine. But, this guy here might be one of the top choices to license by Tempest 2 or 3 if you haven't already. It's not going to beat the entire Tempest 3 event anyway, so you're not losing out by licensing it. But that 10% bonus and using it in live racing will pay a lot of dividends in the long run. So that would be my top choices for license or use in the event. Another good live racer from collections, the Griffith, but again, harder, much harder to get fusions for, even compared to the Honda. Uh, Let me see if I'm missing out on anything here. I think that's it for Tier 4. The SRT Hellcat Charger is not a bad live racer, but not super outstanding. And the DBX 707 is another Tier 4 live racer that's really good. So if you have that from something, that's a good car to maintain long term for live racing as well. And really, that's about it. Now, as far as beating oh, here we go. Forgot about this guy. LC500 still a strong and quite viable live racer. Emera, strong enough live racer. So these are all options. You're more likely to have this car than that car. But the problem is, this car doesn't shine until it's fully elite. Same with the NSXR. It has to be restored, you elite it, etc., etc. Now, Tier 4 also has a lot of good Audis for live racing. The latest, the Sportback, the RS6 Avant, M4 CSL is a good live racer. So your options for licensing, generally focusing on live racers, is pretty well expanded by Tier 4. You have a lot of options here. Even the Urus Performante is good. DBX 707 is good. But acquiring them is much tougher, and you're more likely to be able to acquire the Jack Roush or the Dark Horse than you are these other cars when you're new, right? If you get to Tempest 3 time Elite license, it's probably pretty easy to pick, but Elite License 2 and Elite License 1, you're going to have very limited choices. Again, any Audi, which we had quite a few of these RS6 Avant GT, etc., both as milestone or as PC card, they're good live racers. They're always worth putting in as Elite license cars. And this one here is a great live racer as well. Okay, that's enough time we've spent on Tier 4. Let's go to Tier 5. Now, Tier 5, quite honestly, Elite license, whatever you have, that's good. For example, we have so many bad Tier 5s and also so many good Tier 5s. It'll be too long a video for me to just try to go through all of them. But, for example, we have a Prestige Cup coming using this guy, the Regera. The Regera is a good live racer. And if you notice, I love the Regera so much, I actually did Elite license my Regera from back in the day. And I've used it all these years in live racing over time and map racing, that it has earned its keep. And that 10% has paid me, over the years, who knows how many RP. So that's a great choice for the coming season because it's a PC car. And then a lot of the Prestige Cup cars are decent for live racing, but again, the recent ones, not as much. You have your collection cars that you're going to end up using for collection cups and showdowns. Extra RP never hurts there. But again, a lot of them, there are just so many cars. A lot of them are really not that great. So you really have to pick and choose. But by Tier 5, you have so many options. It's more picking the right car for the event than picking the right car for the license. It's pretty easy to pick a decent live racer. Whatever you like to use in Tier 5 for live racing, you can just Elite license that. Tougher when you're starting as a beginning player. You may not have that many options in Tier 5. Then really it comes down to whatever you can get fusions for. That's where the Koenigsegg may not be a great choice because hard to get fusions for. You want something like a Ford or Audi or something along those lines. We just had Audis as PC Cup car and also Audi as recently as a milestone. So I think if you have an Audi Tier 5, that's not a bad choice potentially for the first Elite license. You can get much more selective on the second and third license. Again, Tier 5, the choices are so numerous that it's just really a personal choice at that point. You need to make sure to test the car, make sure you have enough fusions. That's going to be the major part of this, and make sure that it's a car that you're going to actually want to use in the future. So those are your choices for your Elite licenses. Okay, so there are a lot of choices, and it really, at this point, with so many cars in the game, it's rather confusing and difficult to figure out exactly what to do for which car. But I think you still have pretty good choices overall for running and locking in for Elite License. As always, the choice should be something that you're going to use. Just remember, you're getting a 10% bonus on RP, and most of us don't want to waste that bonus on a car that we'll never use again. However, as the game evolves, that always happens. You're going to end up with cars you never use again. Remember, at the time I locked these in, these were some top cars in the game. Now these are all basically outdated, except for the Regera. And the Angel Civic are still good. Pretty much everything else I selected in my license are cars that I basically never used now. So you have to just understand that your choices today may not be what you'll be happy with down the line, but we're limited by what cars we have and what are good currently in the game. So I hope that gives you some better updates and ideas about cars you can use for Elite License and how I select them. If you have any questions, ask in the comments. If you like the video, leave a like. If you like my channel and like this kind of videos, well, subscribe, hit the bell, and you get notified when I put up new videos. So, as always, thank you for watching my videos. I'll catch you next time.